And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Councilwoman Coonrod.
Will you join me in prayer? Holy God, my Father, thank you for the many blessings that are upon our local community. I pray for those who are in the offices that govern this community, and that we make wise and godly decisions which are always in the best interest of the community. Even if I differ from these leaders, I pray for them to be blessed by you, God, and also those who are in law enforcement. Please protect them in their line of duty so that they might protect those of us who have placed our trust in them. God, please bless these men and women in city government and the mayor's office. We ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Help us as leaders to not ask first, how do we fix this? But what do we need to learn? How we might need to change? And to whom do we need to listen? In your gracious name, Jesus, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilwoman. Have a motion to approve the minutes? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is special presentations. And I believe the first one we're going to have this evening is the City of Chattanooga Civil Rights Essay Contest winner by City Attorney Hinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of council, I'm going to take the next hour to talk about, okay, no.
He's probably not kidding.
No, seriously, so I want to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity. As you can recall, some time ago, we announced that we would do a civil rights essay contest, and the purpose of that contest is to increase students' knowledge and understanding of civil rights and empower them to make the world a better place for others and for generations to come. We wanted to hear their voices. We wanted to hear from them what they thought was important, and more importantly, we wanted to hear their solutions. This contest was eligible for students between grades 10 and 12. And for this first year, we received essays from public schools, charter schools, private schools. We received between 40 and 50 essays, which is great for this first year. We heard common themes like gentrification and redlining, access to jobs, justice, period. These are things that resonated with these students. And in fact, we're thinking about how we could actually engage those students even more to hear about how they could help this community move forward. With that in mind, though, we had one winner. We found the winner's words to be wise beyond her years. We found them to resonate not only with us, but with the many topics that you discuss in this chamber. The question that we posed to these students was this: identify any barriers you see for all Chattanoogans to experience Dr. King's dream and what you and your community can do to overcome those barriers. And with that, Phoebe Mills did well. She wrote what we thought was an awesome essay. And again, wise beyond her years. I want to make sure we recognize Ms. Phoebe Mills and bring her up right now. And I want to take a moment to read the proclamation that goes along with this. In addition to being recognized here tonight, she also will receive a $400 book scholarship. And the proclamation says, whereas this year marked the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, and whereas we also remember the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated 50 years ago, and whereas young people have always been at the forefront of social justice and change in our nation, and whereas we think it is important to engage and involve young people to help us break down barriers preventing all Chattanoogans from living the lives they desire, and whereas this year marks the inaugural Civil Rights Essay Contest, now therefore I, Andy Burke, Mayor of the City of Chattanooga, do hereby recognize Phoebe Mills as the winner of the inaugural Civil Rights Essay Contest. Congratulations, Phoebe. I have asked for a copy of the essay to be provided for the record. And there is a video of Phoebe. She's not going to speak tonight. I know, again, didn't want to be here a long time, but she provided, read this at the Fair Housing Conference hosted by the city and gave a wonderful speech, and that will be available online for you all to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Mr. Chair, let me do this one last thing. I want to make sure I recognize her mother, Catherine, who's in the audience with her tonight. And I also want to make sure I recognize the volunteers that helped with this. And if you all would please stand so you can be recognized, that would be great. Tony, others. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our second special presentation. This one is a special community recognition by Councilman Russell Gilbert.
Can I have Assistant Chief McPherson and Captain Bacon come down, please? As they come down, you know, this is a sad occasion for me and my community because we're losing Chattanooga finest for retirement. You know, a lot of times people don't understand what they go through each and every day, the things they have to put together to make us safe. For an example, Assistant Chief McPherson, you know, many times we've seen it was an outcry of a lot of violence of gangs and things of that nature. So he decided, so looking into putting a task force together, he put together FBI, TBI, Sheriff Department and others, cities, to come together to help with each other with crime. Also, you know, two more things, I can break it brief. I remember riding with Assistant Chief, and I remember one lady up in D Drive. She was happy to see him. She would jump up and do, "How you doing, sir? Can I get you some water?" So later on, I found out that he actually arrested her son. So for me to see a parent really greet a man that arrested her son, because she wants her son to go in the right way, and she knew that McPherson cared about her son. That means a lot to me. And then, you know, he has went to a lot of cases where there was unsolved murders in our city, and he made some promises that he said, before I leave, I want to make sure I help as many as I can to solve some of these cases, the cold cases. So he got with the district attorney, and they got together with other organizations of police, and they came up with some solutions and actually found these guys and whoever that did the crime to pay the time. So for a young man, that means a lot to me. Then you have the next young man on my side, Mr. Captain Bacon. I'm gonna say Chief too. And this young man has done so much, especially in my area. You know, he has mentored a lot of kids in the Brandon area, in the high school. He has developed a lot of things in the high school. You know, a lot of times we hear where single parents, it's hard for them to raise a child, especially a man, to be a man. But I can say that's not true, because his mother raised him to be where he's at by herself. And you see what a fantastic man she raised. So that theory is a theory. It's what you choose to be, is what you become. So today I'm going to recognize, let me go with these plaques, huh? These are proclamations that put together, but before I actually, well, I'm gonna read these proclamations. I got some more people here right behind me want to speak too. So the first one is Mr. McPherson, or Edward McPherson. Whereas Edward McPherson is the Assistant Chief of Criminal Investigation Bureau of the Chattanooga Police Department and is retiring after 26 years of service. He is also a graduate of the 2043 FBI National Academy class of 2010 and a graduate of the Southern Command and Leadership Academy. Whereas in May 2016, he was promoted to Assistant Chief of Criminal Investigation. And during this tenure, he successfully reorganized several investigations units to better serve the citizens of Chattanooga. Whereas under the direction of the mayor and the chief of police, he was responsible for developing a gang unit called the Crime Suppression Unit, which was created to address the ongoing gang issues that target youth, violence, and serious crimes against persons. Whereas, as Assistant Chief of Criminal Investigation, he has reorganized the entire investigation unit by incorporating the necessary personnel to produce positive results in decreasing crime. Whereas Assistant Chief McPherson is leaving a legacy and a blueprint that demonstrates the compassion, the dedication, the sacrifice, the integrity needed to have a successful career. He is a pillar in the community and has served on several community committees. Now, therefore, I, Russell Gilbert, Councilman for Councilman District 5, do hereby proclaim May the 8th, 2018, the day of recognition for Assistant Edward McPherson. Can you give him a hand? Now the next young man, and I gotta apologize for Mr. Ayers, but I told him to go first and I forgot all about it, so we're gonna have him next, and Dr. Woods. Whereas retired Captain Pedro Bacon is a veteran of 25 years with the Chattanooga Police Department, starting his career as an undercover narcotics officer 1990. Captain Bacon's path has been well-traveled and diverse since coming to CPD. Whereas being born to a teen parent and raised by a single mother led to Captain Bacon's passion, notice I said passion, of assisting and mentoring our youth. Whereas Captain Bacon simultaneously taught criminal justice and earned his professional teaching license at Brainerd High School, which is just 5th District, number 1. He created the criminal justice curriculum that is still in use at Brainerd High School. Whereas during his stay in Internal Affairs, he created training modules and assists to better process of the software utilized by the department personnel. He is also interact with the city attorney office and a regular basis, as well as several other institutions such as the TBI, FBI, Federal Prosecution Office, local attorney, and the county district attorney office. Whereas Captain Bacon holds a bachelor's degree from Western Kentucky University, 1989, where he was a football letterman, and holds a master's of business administration from Western Government in 2015. Now, therefore, I, Russell Gilbert, councilman for Council District 5, do hereby proclaim May the 8th, 2018, as a day of recognition for Captain Pedro Bacon. Can you give him a hand? Next, Mr. Harris, will you please come up and apologize if I forgot to let you go first.
I was wondering when you going to get through talking.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
I appreciate the opportunity, Councilman Gilbert, and appreciate everything that you've done for these two young men. And they've been really an asset to our community, especially in the Eastdale and Foxwood area. I'm going to ask that my advisor, Bill Gardner, and Gloria McClendon from Foxwood, would you come up, please, ma'am? Gloria, she loves Captain Bacon, and that's the reason why I'm asking her to come up. The members of our North Brandon Community Council, would y'all stand up so people can see y'all? And I'm not going to call you up, but just stand up so I can see you and everything, so they can see who you are, these people here. Appreciate all y'all coming out. We have a little something here we want to give you to show your appreciation for our area and present this to you. Here a while back here, a couple of years ago, Captain Bacon, you came to our community and we honored you at that time. My daughter happened to see this and she said, Dad, you should get that and give it to him. I said, well, Gloria is in there. They may think that's his girlfriend. I said, well, but I said, I'll give it to her and I want her to present this to you because she's in that picture with you. So we want to thank you all for all you've done for the community. We appreciate all what y'all have done for us and everything. And we want to invite the public out on the 24th at 6 p.m. at New Monumental Baptist Church. We're going to be having a retirement dinner for them. So if you want to come out and join us, feel free to do so. Thank all of you, and we thank all of y'all for honoring them, okay?
I got one more person coming up. Dr. Woods, will you come up, please?
Good evening. I bought my posse tonight in case somebody want to try to do something to me. On behalf of the NAACP, I would like to first greet everyone here. The day is here. And to say to each and every one of you that have ever been a part of this community, you have to know these two men. If you've been a part of Chattanooga for any length of time, you've seen them on the streets. You've seen them fight for our children, our families, and to keep our streets safe. And for that, we owe them a round of applause just for that. But I want to go a little further and tell you that these two men have been on the battlefield fighting for equality in the area of civil rights. And for that, we are here because they have been in the trenches with the NAACP, not just fighting for black folks, but fighting for all folk on the streets. And so we are very proud, and at the same time, we're sad. We're sad because this city is losing two of their best officers. And I think we all can applaud to that. I have searched the land to and fro. You know, it's just like Jesus, a God. He searched everywhere looking for somebody that would be good enough to come down and save us, and he couldn't find nobody. So he came down himself. And so we have searched, and I can tell you, I've not seen two finer officers. I know we got some good ones now. I know we do. I don't mean to put anybody down. But these two have mentored our children, and our children know them firsthand by name, and we know them on the streets, and I can say they've done their job respectfully, but they know, and we know, that if they find us in the wrong way, they're going to do something about it at the same time. So how do you love a cop that does his job, and they come and arrest you, and we apologizing because we let them down? Those are the kind of cops that we want to look for in the city of Chattanooga. Those are the kinds of things and characters of our officers standing before us tonight that we need to continue to look for, and those who are officers now need to strive to be like them. So on behalf of the NAACP, for all the things they've done with us and on the street and for this community, we'd like to recognize, Hakeem, could you come up here? Hakeem is our senior board member with the NAACP, and we have our other officers here tonight. Y'all come on up here. We have our secretary, we have our treasurer, we have our first vice president, we have our third vice president, we have our assistant treasurer here tonight. So we ready, we're armed. Okay. Pedro, since you retired first. Now, you know you've retired from the police department, but you have not retired from the NAACP. And we've got the criminal justice seminar coming up on June 2nd, and you're still the chair. So we look for you to lead us with that. So on behalf of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County branch of the NAACP and the state conference of the NAACP and the national of the NAACP honors Captain Pedro Bacon for 27 years of dedicated service to Chattanooga-Hamilton County, presented on this May 5th date of 2018, and we love you. This is a clock to let you all know that it's time. It's time for him to move on, and God has greater things for you. Come on here. And last but not least, it's hard for a man to be single on the street looking this good and stay and do his job. And I say that I mean that for real. I'm not even playing. Assistant Police Chief Edmund McPherson, you know he's the heart of this community. Everybody loves him. That know him. They love him. And we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'm looking at Donut. You get on up here. Come on up here. Yeah. Come on. You know, this is the first. This is the first detective, African-American detective here in Chattanooga. So we want you to share this with us. And he's a life member of the NAACP. If you all had a chance to see either one of these men's resumes, I can tell you I'm almost filled with tears right now, and at the same time with joy, because I know that God moves us on to do greater things. And so that's what I feel about Edward McPherson. And so on behalf of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County branch of the NAACP, the state conference of the NAACP, and the national organization of the NAACP honors Assistant Police Chief Edward McPherson for 26 years of dedicated service to the Chattanooga-Hamilton County community, presented this May day, the 8th day of May, 2018. You all give him a standing applause. Stand up on your feet. Y'all stand up on your feet. Stand up. Stand up on your feet.
All right, everybody wants to stand up. Stand up.
Yes. Yes. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. We love you. And our beloved pastor, or bishop, Kevin Adams, would like to come forward. We love you too. But somebody else got to shine sometime.
Since you already preached, I would be very, very brief to this wonderful council. I would be remiss if I did not come here today because I honor these two young men and bless God for them. I speak on behalf of all the clergy of Chattanooga and surrounding areas because certainly these two police officers were a bridge between the pastors and the police department. So many times I called upon them, so many times they called upon me. Just the other night, as another young man was killed in our city, some of the family members called me, and I was praying and talking with them, and they said, call Chief McPherson. And so he's going to be greatly missed, and there's going to be a great void in our city, and I pray for that void. Had the opportunity to talk to James Shaw, the young man who was instrumental when the great shooting in Nashville, unfortunate shooting at the Waffle House, and he said it so best as they were interviewing him. He said, I didn't do it for the spotlight. He said, I did it for the cause, I did it for the people. And so when I think about these two young men, I honor them today because they never did it for the spotlight. They did it for the service of the people and the betterment of others. God bless them both.
Council, I know we got a long agenda, but one more thing. Can I have the immediate family of both Bacon and also McPherson stand up, please? And, and can I have the community, the family of the community, can y'all stand up for, please? That came for both these young men. That show you how much love you got in the community. We appreciate you, and we will definitely miss you. But y'all young men, we'll still see you around. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Captain Bacon, don't go anywhere yet. See, Mac knows better. He knows to run off right before anybody has a chance to say anything. Thank you for coming back this evening. We didn't have an opportunity when you first left us to pay you the honor that you so much deserve. So thank you so much for coming back this evening, and congratulations on everything. Thank you. Please introduce me to this I'd say best half, but I think it might be a little bit more than that. Miss Bacon. Often we take time to honor those who have served, and we don't honor their spouses enough. And the sacrifices that I know that you went through so that he could be out there taking care of all of us, I truly can't even imagine or understand. So this may be a small token of our appreciation to him and his service, but you deserve a great, great deal more, as do all of the family members of these two young men that have served our community for so long. And really, it's more the service from when they were rookies. It's their service to their entire life, or they wouldn't be to this point that they are right now serving our community. So thank you for everything that you have done. Thank you, Captain. Chief Mack. Not a whole lot more can be said, but I am going to ask for the opportunity that you already saw coming, so. How are you? Introduce her to us, Chief. Chief, I have no doubt about that. Courtney, thank you, because I can only imagine the nights that you've had to deal with while your dad was out serving others, and it's a sacrifice that we all appreciate too very, very much. And congratulations on having such an outstanding father in your life. Now, Chief, you know, earlier today, we had the privilege, for those of you who don't know, for Chief Roddy to come down and pay his respects to Chief McPherson and kind of surprise him, because you know how he loves the spotlight. And I just wanted to echo some of the things that were said, and I can't even say them nearly as well as what had been, so I'm just going to touch on one point. There was a slide that had a photo of you in it that was shown at 3 o'clock when it kind of surprised you with that, and you were standing by yourself. And the first thing that came to mind is, I don't think I've ever seen a photo of you by yourself. In the years that I've known you, it has never been about you. And it actually stood out to me because I don't think in the thousands of photos that I've seen you in throughout our entire community that I've ever seen one of you by yourself. It has always been about somebody else. And that has not been lost on those of us that serve up here and those that are here in the community. You've brought people out. You got Mr. Moreland sitting out here, my past chairman, Yusuf Hakim, Bishop Adams is here, Dr. Woods, Mr. Calhoun, Donut. I mean, people just flock to support you. And it truly is. It truly is representative of what you have done to serve this community, Mac, and we will never forget it. And I know we will be seeing you around. All right. Thank you, sir, so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for indulging us and letting us do what we do not get to do very often, and that is to celebrate people that have given so much of their lives to this city. So with that, I am going to move on to ordinances on final reading. I know. After this? After 2? Okay. Before I do that, though, I do have one other individual that's hiding in the back of the audience. I just want to say thank you for his attendance, and that's Commissioner Joe Graham. We appreciate you being here this evening, sir. Madam Clerk, 5A, please. No. Chris, she's not on.
Test. Test, test.
That's fine. Thank you. Shall I
Please.
go? An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 906 and 912 East 14th Street, more particularly described herein from R3 residential zone to RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Byrd, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. So ordered. That takes us to B, please, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located at 1135 McNichol Lane, tax map number 1590A026.01 as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. So ordered. Thank you. Takes us to ordinances on first read. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask the council, I guess I'll do it in the form of a motion if I could get some help, to move 6H to the front of the first reading agenda.
All right, I don't think I need to do an all in favor on that one, Councilman. We'd be happy to do H next. Madam Clerk, please go to item H.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 1841, 1847, 1849, and 1853 Park, Knickerbocker Avenue, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to RTZ residential townhouse zero lot line zone.
All right. Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition here? I thought I might see a few hands. Councilman, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, this is, we're up here every Tuesday, and we sort of do this at least as part of our living. And but for the folks that first showed up for the Planning Commission, thank the Planning Commission for recommending a denial. It's hard for them. It's hard for them, and it's an unfortunate process, but it tends to work when it's the right thing to do. And with that, I want to move that we deny this.
All right. I have a motion and a second to deny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk, we'll move back up to the top. Planning 6A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to amend condition 2.1 of specific conditions for R4 zoning ordinance number 12809, a previous case number 2014-008 on part of property located at 6100 Highway 153, more particularly described herein, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an email requesting that we defer items 2018-075, 077, 078, and 079. That is our items 6A through D. They would like for those to be heard at the same time as 2018-0091 on June the 12th. So I'm asking for a deferral of these 4 items until June the 12th.
We take them on floor.
Second.
Right. I have a motion and a second to move these 4 items to June 12th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. It's ordered. Thank you very much, Councilman. All right, Madam Clerk, that takes us to E, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 600 Tremont Street, more particularly described herein from R2 residential zone to R3 residential zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition here? One. All right. Councilman Mitchell, what's your pleasure? Would you like a
I'd
presentation?
like to hear the story.
All right. Mr. Bridger, you're on. It's down, part way.
Okay, sorry guys, catching up.
You're fine.
Let me get my notes together. These are the RTZ requests, correct? Can I add the screen down, please? Thank you. By the way, these next two are right side by side, and it's a similar request. So you just give you a quick overview of the request. I know we briefed these at City Council Committee meeting, so I'll give you a synopsis. Actually, I'm sorry.
That's it.
This is I'm mentioning the wrong one. This is the one before. This is the R3 request. Okay. Well, that's coming up. I'm going to give you an overview. This is request rezoned from R2 to R3 to accommodate. It's an existing 5-unit apartment building. The house already has 5 units. They're just wanting the zoning to reflect the units they have on site. It's located at 600 Tremont Street. Again, as I mentioned before, it's currently been using it as multifamily residential. They already have 5 parking spaces on the property. Staff, and looking at it, look at the plan for the area and also the zoning pattern. If you look at the zoning pattern, you've already got an R3 zone a little further down the street. This is right across from Aretha Frankenstein, so it's kind of like a little commercial node. So R3 works as a good transition from commercial zoning to single-family residential. The plan for the area, if I can pull the plan here, recommends infill, medium to high-density residential. So based on the zoning pattern and the plan recommendation, staff felt R3 would be appropriate as long as we retain the existing structure. So we recommended approval, look at my notes here again, subject to no more than 5 residential dwelling units. There was no opposition at Planning Commission. Planning Commission concurred with staff recommendation to approve with the condition of no more than 5 residential dwelling units.
I'd like to hear from the applicant.
All right. The applicant, you will have 7 minutes to present, and then we'll have opposition, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak afterwards.
That might be good right there.
Good evening. My name is Amy Allen. I own the apartment building at 600 Tremont. I'm requesting the zoning change from R2 to R3 to more accurately reflect the building's use. 600 Tremont Street was built in 1935 and has been an apartment building for at least 50 years, perhaps longer. All 5 apartments have their own electric meters. I updated electric service to the building 2 years ago, and at that time, EPB also installed new meters. The apartment building is located across the street from Aretha Frankenstein's. Also at this corner, as you see, are other commercial buildings, zone C2 and C5, housing service and retail businesses, as well as an R3 building with multiple uses and single-family homes. I believe that my apartment building is compatible with this section of Tremont Street and with the stated goals of the North Shore Plan. I do not intend to change the structure, change the number of apartments, or change the off-street parking area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The opposition like to make comment?
That's okay. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
All right. Well, in that case, Councilman, it's back
I'd like to ask Mr. Bridger a question.
Yes, sir.
No intention means no intention at this time. What are some possibilities for conditions that, and here's what I'm afraid of, is in North Chattanooga, we've had quite a bit of monstering going on. I like
Sure.
to call it McMansion type of things. Now with an R3, apartments could go, the house could come down, and something huge literally could go up where it wouldn't fit into the character of the neighborhood. So what are some forms of conditions that I can ask for an amendment on?
If you want something we've done in the past is retention of the existing structure is something you can add. We've done that in the past, particularly when people are using an office, an existing home. So that's something that's been pretty commonly done. You can say retain, subject to, I'm assuming that's your intention, to retain the existing house. So that's a condition you could add if you want to make sure that the existing residential structure is retained.
Would that be all right? It's a condition?
As it was explained to me when in the meeting with RPA, that there could be 2 options. I have no problem with that condition. It was also explained in the event of a catastrophe that, say, for example, say the building burns down, but in something like that, that I wouldn't be able to build an R3 because the lot size wouldn't be appropriate anyway. It would probably it would revert to R1 or R2, which is what I would do anyway. So I have no problem saying just what you said, that no more than 5 units in that building.
All right, so, Mr. Attorney, could I do an amendment here? Our condition, I guess it'd be adding a condition?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Because there is no condition on it right now.
Okay, and the condition would be the same size, or what?
Retention of the existing home. That's what we've done in the past for like office, for retaining the existing. I'm looking at my LDO staff, right? That's the language you're comfortable with. So retention of the existing structure.
Okay, all right.
And what I would recommend here is the current one says, this rezoning shall be approved subject to no more than 5 residential
dwelling units within the existing structure. I believe that would help.
Well, I think what they're trying to get that is, but they don't want to see the house go away and then, so I'm not, yeah.
It needs to be what John went with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, retention of the existing structure, I would say subject to no more than 5 dwelling units and retention of the existing structure, just to be clear that both conditions.
Would you be okay with that?
How does that, and should there be, how does that affect, say something terrible happens? What is that? How does that affect?
You would need to, I'm gonna look at my LDOs, Charles.
Sure. I understand.
I think the one aspect is, correct me if I'm wrong, if a building burns down, this is what we call a legal established use, you're allowed to rebuild similar to what was there, correct? So he would allow her to reconstruct a building of similar scale to what was already there?
That's what I'm after, similar scale. Okay, so what we're doing here would allow her to do that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would like to move for that condition to be added.
Let's get it on the floor first, sir, and then we'll.
Oh, excuse me, motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
All right, now we're gonna vote on that? No, we're gonna add the condition now?
Yep.
All right, so I would move to add the condition.
All right, I have a motion and a second for the condition. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Great. Now motion to approve is amended.
Motion to approve is amended.
I have a motion and a second to approve as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You got all that, Phil?
Got it.
Got it, okay. Madam Clerk, F, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 512 Tucker Street, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to RZ1 zero lot line residential zone.
Is the applicant here? All right, is there any opposition? Both. Which pleasure, Councilman? Would you also like a presentation on this one?
Yes, I guess we have.
All
to
right,
have a
John?
Presentation.
This is a request to rezone, as mentioned in the reading of the record, a piece of property at 512 Tucker Street from R1 residential to RZ1. So basically, so they can divide the lot to 2 lots to allow 2 single-family dwellings. Okay. The property is currently, as you can see here, is currently used for single-family detached dwelling. There's single-family residential to the north, the east, and basically, meaning to the north and to the actually the west of the site. The nearest RZ zone, as you can see to the south, there have been some prior cases rezoning to RZ1 further south off of Rosewood Avenue. And this would be continue that pattern. So as I mentioned before, the site plan, and you can see what's done here to the south where they rezoned it and they subdivided the rear lot to have a residential structure in the rear of the property with access coming off of Rosewood. So this would, as you can see in the site plan, they would create a new structure to the rear with access coming off of Rosewood Avenue. This site is not located in the North Shore Plan, which recommends urban single-family residential, but it is on the same street. As you can see, there's sections of Tucker to the south. It's recommended for urban residential single-family. Staff's primary concern with this request, whoa, really flew on its own there. I mean, several-fold. One is, I think you would need to get several variances to do the development based on the narrowness of the lot. But I think more importantly, if you look at, let me go back to this map. Come on now. Is setting the precedent for this marching up the street to the north. Now, it does change, as you see in the map here, where the road winds, Rosewood winds, that Rosewood Avenue. It becomes an alley condition to the north, so that does change things a little bit. Still, the concern from staff is you're continuing a precedent of moving RZ1 up Tucker Avenue, and for that reason, staff recommended to deny. At Planning Commission, there was no opposition at the time, and so Planning Commission considered staff's report, the applicant's information and feedback, and decided to recommend approval considering that they considered the request was actually was compatible with the development form of the area. So they recommend to approve it based on the deliberations from the meeting. I don't know why this thing's sticking. You can see here's the property right here. There's Tucker Street, and there's Rosewood. So again, it comes with the recommendation to deny from staff and approve from Planning Commission.
All right, thanks, John. The applicant like to come up, please?
Actually, let me go, probably this one might be a better one.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to do two properties that are right adjacent to the RZ1 that's been approved. And basically, the Rosewood right now, the people on Rosewood are looking at the back of my house and my neighbor's house, which I'm trying to get rezoned, and I'm gonna buy his house if it does get rezoned. We basically have the two junkers on Tucker Street, the houses are. And so right now, the people on Rosewood are looking at the back of my house and my neighbor's house. And by putting two houses there, they'll actually be looking at, you know, two nicer new houses. And actually, it will make Rosewood look more like a street, because right now it looks like an alley because of my backyard and my neighbor's backyard. And by actually putting a couple of houses there and, you know, widening the road a little bit with, right now there's a culvert that's just a deep ditch. And of course, I would be filling that in, so it would actually make Rosewood look wider. So I think actually Rosewood Avenue would look better with two new houses, you know, facing Rosewood. So that's my plan, so.
All right. The opposition like to speak? If you would, come on up to the mic.
It's fun, come on.
I'm Leah Bridges. I've lived in North Chattanooga since '99, and I love it. And they've destroyed our beautiful little neighborhood by ripping down all the old 1910 homes and replacing them with McMansions and these nasty little houses that are like right up on each other. So you could hand your cup of coffee to your neighbor through the window. I mean, like, if a fire happens in this house, it's gonna spread to that one, and to that one, and to that one. It's a safety issue, it's a noise issue. Being right next to people like that, you can hear everything going on. And I bought a house in that neighborhood with every dime I had, and I don't want it to turn into crud. And it's turned into crud, even though it's beautiful. But according to him, it's probably one of the junkers, you know, because it's 1910. So that's my opposition. I don't like the zero lot lines, and I don't like that they're destroying old, beautiful homes and just ripping them up and putting these little, you know, track housing, essentially, is what it looks like. They have no value to me and to most of the people. The beauty of North Chattanooga is that it's North Chattanooga, and it's got really old mill homes where people walked back and forth to work. So that's my thought, and that's why I'm opposed. No offense.
Thank you.
Okay, well, one thing, you know, basically the two houses on Tucker, I am gonna keep those and just renovate them and, you know, basically make them look a little better than they do now. But I'm not gonna change the two houses on Tucker. And as far as the two houses on the back of Rosewood, if you look at the houses across the street that are already built, my houses are, you know, with the zero lot line, I'm just getting to where I can have the setbacks. The side setbacks are gonna be 5 feet on each lot, so the houses will be 10 feet apart. I've got enough room to do about 25 to 30 feet in front of the house. So if you look at the houses across the street from those two lots, I mean, those houses aren't, you know, they look like they're probably 30 feet from the street. So I think the two houses that I could build would fit in with the houses that are already back there on Rosewood. So.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman?
Well,
We didn't use all 7.
Didn't use all 7 minutes, so I guess so. Yeah, it's all right with me.
My name is Ginger Moss, and I do live in North Chat in the 37405 zip code. And the Rosewood that he's talking about, it's fairly natural for parts of it, and it's not a good place for any sort of parking. And even if he says that all of the entrance and egress will be off of Tucker Street, inevitably people will be parking back there, and it'll be a hindrance and a safety issue to our community. So I would like to keep it preserved as is if possible. Thank you.
I think he's got a little time left, the way we did.
Do you have any comment?
Any-
Any further comment?
I'm not sure what she means by that, but I mean, I'll have driveways on Rosewood for cars for off-street parking. So I don't see how the parking thing would be a factor, so.
Councilman?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that, I got to say this first. Rosewood looks like an alley because that's about how wide it is, an alley. I'm intrigued by the comment of filling in the culvert, did you say?
Yes, yes.
And so where does that
I've
rain,
actually
where does that
already-
rainwater go when you fill in the culvert?
Well, it's just ditches where my lot and my neighbor's lot is, but some of it actually goes on down to Colby Street, into a sewer somewhere, or,
But it'll run across the road if you fill it in.
no, I don't think it runs across the road. If you, down 2 lots or so, I think it just keeps, I'm not sure, that's a good question.
It is a good question. I'm going to move for a deferral because I think some more details have been worked out. I'm not necessarily against what you're trying to do, and it has been done already up that street.
Right.
Of course, it's becoming super overcrowded. I don't think it could be done any further north than these 2 final lots, which you understand also. But I'm going to move for a deferral and see if we can work together to work some of these details out.
Until when, sir? How long?
Well, let's try 1 week, and if that doesn't work, we'll try a little harder. I'll take a book out of Councilman Henderson's, a page out of his book, and we'll go till we get it right.
Fair enough. Have a motion for defer to the 15th. And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. It's ordered, deferred till the 15th. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, G.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 510 Tucker Street, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to RZ10 lot line residential zone.
Mr. Bridger,
that
can I
one, yeah.
move to deferral without a public hearing here?
Yeah, I think you're not taking action to approve or deny. I think you'll be all right.
1 week deferral.
Got a motion?
Motion.
All right, have a motion and a second to defer this item as well to the 15th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So far. No problem, sir. Aye, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 7509 and 7513 Ziegler Road, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to RT1 residential townhouse zone.
All right, is the applicant here? Yes. Is there any opposition here? Councilman? You want the presentation? John?
Let me get my notes. Give me a second here. That's what happens when you get 20-something cases. All right.
We're going to have
now.
some next week, too.
Here we go. Sorry, guys, took me a minute. That's not right. All right, give me a second. Do this the old-fashioned way. All right, here we go. Okay. This is a request to rezone a property at 7509 and 7019 Ziegler Road from R1 to RT1 to accommodate a townhouse development. If I'm not mistaken, it's for 12 units. I'll show you the site plan. 612. Right here, you can see the proposed site plan has a single point of access coming off of Ziegler Road. Most of the parking is in the interior portion of the property. There are some in the front, but they're proposing to, again, rezone the property so they can have 12 townhouses. Staff, looking at the request, start with the zoning of the area. Most of the zoning along Ziegler Road is R1, single family. You can see the property in question outlined as case 2018-0054. To the north, you do have a recent request to rezone from R1 to RTZ in 2016. That request, my notes on that one, it basically set a limit on the number of total units to 5 dwelling units per acre when it was approved there fronting Joyner Road. The Hamilton Place land use plan, get to that, recommends low-density residential, which is basically up to 5 dwelling units per acre for this location. So in looking at the zoning pattern for the area and the plan recommendation, staff recommended to deny the request, mainly because it would set a precedent for rezoning other tracts of land along Ziegler Road to RTZ. At Planning Commission, there was opposition, but after hearing from the opposition, I think a lot of the opposition had to concern with whether it's going to be owner-occupied or rental, questions about traffic on Ziegler Road. But after hearing from the opposition and the applicant and staff's report, Planning Commission recommended to approve the request, and they found that it was compatible with the development form of the area. So it has 2 different recommendations, one to deny from staff and approve from Planning Commission.
All right, John, thanks. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it pleases the council, there was opposition at planning, but the developer and the opposition have made a great plan together, and that's why you're not seeing opposition tonight. So unless we really want to hear from Mr. Price, I would like to move for approval.
All right, I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, Jay, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 7978 Park and 8012 Shallowford Road, more particularly described herein, from R1 residential zone to R4 special zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant here? Thought so. Is there any opposition here? All right. Councilman, do you wish a presentation? All right, John, it's all you.
Okay. This is, again, a request to rezone from R1 to R4 zone to accommodate assisted living facility with a density of 5.8 dwelling units per acre. Again, the entire site is about 8.7 acres, and they're asking for the R4 to accommodate the proposed assisted living use. As you can see, the property is currently a vacant piece of property. It also does contain a conservation easement on portions of the property, which I believe we'll see here. You see, if you see that dash line, the gray dash line that cuts through the driveway, that portion of the property is in the conservation easement. I just want to note again, and I'm sure the city attorney will add to this, this is, well, there is a litigation matter with this site. We're just looking at the zoning, and what we decide does not have any bearing on the litigation between the 2 property owners in question. So we're looking at the purpose of a zone for this location. That
litigation will continue regardless of the action of this body.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So staff, in looking at this request, look at, again, the zoning pattern of the area and the land use plan recommendations. There is an RTZ zone to the east of this property. It was zoned in 1996 to RTZ, no site plan. So there's no conditions on that property currently. There is R2 zoning a little further to the west. But again, staff, looking at the East Brainerd Community Plan, recommended low-density residential uses for this site. So considering the land use plan recommendations for this location, staff recommended to deny. Again, thinking about precedent for other R4 zones in this area that's not consistent with the plan. There was opposition at Planning Commission. Some concerns were presented about added traffic to the area, as well as it was mentioned about the conservation easement, and there may be a conflict there. But after hearing from the staff's report and the opposition, the applicant, Planning Commission found that the proposed use is compatible with the development form of the area, and they recommended approval subject to the following conditions: to be used as an assisted living facility only, building to be set back from Shalford Road no less than 200 feet, building height restricted to 3 stories, trash pickup between 8 and 5 p.m., development limited to 1 curb cut only, and signage to be a maximum of 6 feet by 10 feet or 60 square feet. So again, staff recommended to deny. Planning Commission was recommended to approve with these conditions.
All right, John, thank you. Would you like to hear from the applicant? Mr. Price?
Thank you, Mike Price, MAP Engineers. So yes, we have developed a plan here for a assisted living. For some of you on the council, this plan previously came up before some of you several years ago. The issue at that point in time had to do with the reason that it did not go forward. The applicant at that time withdrew as they were working on the issues as it related to the conservation easement. At this time, the conservation easement is being worked out, hopefully, through court, through action, which is previously mentioned by John. But as it relates to the plan itself, this is a good plan because of the fact that it limits the development in a set area. The assisted living facility has very little traffic generated as it relates to the use, and the curb access that we've located is at a point where it provides the maximum amount of visibility for people coming in and out of this facility, as well as those traveling on Shalford Road. The facility also will cut down a little bit on the slope up top, so there'll be a retaining wall against the property to the east, and if you notice, we show a landscape buffer of 10 feet in width along that area where there'll be planted trees in that location. So by limiting the height to 3 feet, by putting the building 200 feet back, it really tucks it in an area with the conservation easement surrounding it, so that it really will be sort of tucked and hidden away as it relates to the other properties that are in the area. As staff has noted, the property to the east is zoned RTZ, so that will have a rather dense, or can have a rather dense residential development. So it is in form and in keeping with the area, and that's what the Planning Commission found. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those at this time.
Mike, we do have one question from the city attorney first, please.
Mr. Price, who are the parties in the litigation that is pending?
The property owner, which is Mr. Chris Moore, Dr. Chris Moore, who is here this evening, he is the property owner, and so he is essentially what they're asking. The litigation amounts to this, in so many words. Again, not a lawyer, hadn't been to any of these meetings, but what I understand is essentially it is the definition of the use. So the conservation easement says that you can access the property and use it for residential use. And I believe, as John pointed out at Planning Commission, that R4 is a residential use. The contention is that it could be considered a commercial use with an assisted living facility. So that's for a judge to decide. Is this a residential use or is this a commercial use? Depending on the outcome, we'll obviously determine whether or not this project moves forward.
And who are the other parties that are suing?
That would be the conservation easement holders. If I guess there may be some that are here that can talk about that themselves, and so I'll let them sort of fill in blanks as it relates to their concerns.
Okay, and this ordinance was not something that was established for the property by the city or the county, it was by the property owners themselves?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Price's comment, I would like to hear a little bit about can someone talk about the biodiversity garden and conservancy efforts that are kind of walk hand in hand with this proposal?
Hi, I'm Sandy Kurtz.
Evening,
I'm
Ms.
with
Kurtz.
the board member of the Urban Century Institute, and this property initially came to us as an award for the Walmart lawsuit, the Brainerd Walmart lawsuit, and we immediately determined in 2009 that we wanted to have a conservation easement placed on this land so that it could preserve a portion of the watershed, and also that we could use as an educational site where we would demonstrate the benefits of biodiversity, of native plants and habitats, and people could come in a passive recreational style and enjoy the beauty of the nature and also learn from it so that they could perhaps apply it to their own residences when they left, or would be more informed about the value of native plants. So we eventually we realized that we were going to have to have some income coming in, and we determined that we could build something on top of the hill and still preserve the conservation easement. And at that time, we turned it over to Chris Moore, who in agreement with us, working to make that happen. As you see that what's been passed around there, this is the initial plan for the biodiversity gardens. And while it's changed a bit, it's still, in essence, what we had intended. So this has been a vision of Urban Century Institute, a nonprofit organization, for since 2009. And we would really like to see it happen. We've entered into talks with Clarity Point, who would build the assisted living, and we think that really is the perfect kind of residences for this. It's beneficial for the residents, and it would provide public access as well for people in the area. So if you think about it, if this were left to be just land that was for sale, I think you would probably see a bunch of houses along the road and subdivision sort of look without the green space. So this really guarantees that this biodiversity gardens will be in perpetuity a green space for the area. Any questions?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Pardon me, the pollen is taking me over. Without this partnership, this project has been kind of stalled for years and years. Is that correct?
Yes, you heard Mr. Price talk about the initial. There have been 2 attempts before this, but this is the best. This is really the best one.
And the progress is being made in that situation, so therefore we're coming back again.
Yes.
And the work that will be done on your agency's behalf, this is going to be open to the public.
Yes.
And that's interesting.
Open to the public, and it will. The maintenance and care and planning for it will remain under Urban Century Institute's supervision.
So you'll be managing it as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have for right now.
All right. We have 9 minutes for opposition to speak.
Hello, my name is Gay DeMars, and I'm representing myself and my husband. We have adjoining property on Shalford, which is zoned for residential living as the surrounding properties, with the exception of the corners at the roundabout, which are convenience and laundry service. As the council members are aware, the subject property at 8012 Shalford Road is currently in litigation pending the outcome of a declaratory judgment to be reviewed by the judge on May the 14th regarding the usage type. Their agreement restricts residents to 30 per the quitclaim deed that easement was signed in December 2011. Now the 30 residential units, which is on the agreement, that's what that states, but what they're putting in now are 76 units with 110 beds. So we're not opposed to development of that property. It's just they're trying to put in almost a 60,000 square foot one building that's 3 stories in a residential area. And the block right before that, which is the 7,000 block, has probably 5 assisted living developments, plus commercial and other things that have come into that development. And we just want to keep it residential only. And I know that Mr. Price is saying that it is residential, but it's a 60,000 square foot building. It's not townhomes or condos or single-family homes or RTZs. It is a commercial type building. The usage may be for residential people living there, but it actually is 110 beds. And I was doing some stat looking on the property, and it looks like per stats, there's about 0.52 per resident that there is a staff person for that. So if we have 0.52 and 110 beds, you're going to have 57 cars on that property for staff. And then on top of that, you're going to have vehicles that would come in for medical, food, uniform, bedding, doctors, family members, friends, residents, trash service, and other parking. And plus, that's only, the drawing itself that they've given only allows for 42 parking spaces. So it looks like there's an issue with existing parking and the staff and medical trash delivery. And they only have one road that comes into the area, and the grade is very steep, so that traffic is going to be awfully loud coming into the area. I don't know how they're going to turn around at the top and where the additional parking is going to be. I would like to add that the current owner did previously request a 26 residential condo development, and that was only 26 units, which did comply with the Tennessee Land Trust, and that was withdrawn in 2013. As the council members has observed, that there is a flooding on that Mackey branch, so and the Tennessee Land Trust is aware of that as well. I know the lady talked just a moment ago from the Urban Century, but there is also Tennessee Land Trust, and that's who, I don't know if they call it regulate the property, but that was an agreement in the quitclaim in the year 2011 that did restrict it to residential passage, cars and trucks going over the property for residential usage only, and limit it to 30. I know we're discussing right now just the rezoning of it, and the judge is going to decide if it is considered residential or commercial property at that date on the 14th. I would like to ask for, if the council is more favorable to approving this, which I hope that they do consider it more, and consider this more commercial and not residential property, I would like them to take in consideration to have some buffer on this property to protect the property that we have next door to it for future development, that they would put trees and buffers, and if they could, move the property more to toward the Jenkins Road area, because right now, the way the road is set up, everything is going to come straight on our property, right next door to our property line. And there's going to be a noise, keeping lighting away from the residential area on that 8014 property. And we do have an attorney who has sent a letter over asking for it to be deferred until the court made a decision, but I see that we've gone further with this. But he did want me to read a couple of things. He said, with the limited inadequate parking proposal, there should be a looped road around circling the building to allow better traffic flow for the staff and visitors. Parking proposes 42 spaces, and staff alone may fill those 42 spaces. The rezoning should require the building site to be away from the property as 8014, as not to adversely impact future residential development. Any rezoning to a large medical type facility should require site obscuring and should dampen tree screening, such as adding Leland cypress to be planted around the perimeter of the property. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you will have consideration that we're trying to not have a commercial impact as the 7,000 block has become of multiple assisted livings and commercial property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Dixon. My request is simply that this be deferred, because where this property is located, the only safe exit and entrance to that property is where they're showing the road now. I understand that depending on the court's ruling, whether they can take that road across the conservation unit. And until we know what the court is going to do, we're not really sure about the safety of entering and exiting that piece of property. So I'd ask that the council defer until after the judge has a ruling. Otherwise, I am not opposed to it.
Thank you. Is there any other opposition that would like to speak? All right, Mr. Price.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. So assisted livings don't require as much parking as many other type of residential areas. We've done a number of assisted living facilities for a number of different clients, and they're all the same. There's very limited parking that's required just because they don't use it or need it. Great thing about an assisted living facility is it doesn't generate noise. If you can imagine 30 houses up there at the top of the hill and kids and everything else, now you're going to get some noise going on. The residents that will be in here don't party past 6 o'clock at night, I think. Once the bingo hour's over, it's bedtime. So I don't think we'll have a lot of parties and things like that going on. We do meet fire department safety access requirements. It doesn't require you to put a driveway all the way around the building. It just simply requires that they have proper access, which this does meet. Stormwater, we will meet the requirements of the city as it relates to stormwater. Again, the building, I know there was discussion about where the building is sited on the property, and again, it's set 200 feet back off of Shallowford Road. And in addition to that, single-family residential houses on there, depending upon the house and how it would be potentially set in this area, could either be setting either 10 feet or 25 feet off of the DeMars property line to the east. We're, right now, I think if I'm correct, I think we're sitting at about 65 or 70 feet back. So by pushing the building back and providing the landscape buffer, it does provide proper protection as it relates to their property. And the driveway is located at the most possible maximum safe location that we could possibly put on the site. We would ask that it would be hopefully passed tonight as we are moving forward in trying to make plans. Again, the lawsuit action notwithstanding, we realize that and understand that. But the first step is to get the zoning taken care of before we can continue to move forward with the project. So if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
Councilman Henderson.
I got maybe one for the attorney and then maybe a couple for Mr. Price. So it looks like the driveway or the road into it goes across the easement, and I'm assuming that's what the lawsuit is about, or are you aware or no?
They have stated at least that the lawsuit is about whether the definition of an assisted living facility is a residential use here as well.
So the road going through the conservation easement is not a problem?
Apparently, you gotta have some access to this property somewhere.
It looks like down below it is out of the easement, correct?
I just wanted to say that the design is in compliance, where the road is in compliance with, has been approved by the Land Trust of Tennessee, okay. And the road safety-wise is not where the driveway is now. It's much lower on the slope because indeed it was a safety issue.
So is this, it looks like what you handed out is going to be in sort of a park form. Is it going to be open to the public?
Yes.
This park?
It's meant to be a public park, passive park.
So would the people coming to this park then park in these parking places?
No.
They
no,
wouldn't?
the parking for that we view as across the street. There's a church there. There's a large parking lot. And we think that there won't be that many people there at any one time that would require extra parking. There may be a little pull-off down on the road somewhere.
So you're suggesting that the people that's coming to this park is parking across the street, and this is Shallowford Road to get to it?
Yep.
We also have looked at, even though it's not shown on the plans, but we've considered placing some parking, 3 to 4 parking spaces down there at the bottom and working with the group as well. That would provide some parking on our side of the road where people could access as well. And plus the parking lot at the top. We sort of see 3 trails, 3 types of trails, an ADA accessible, sort of a medium terrain type trail, and then a more that's in terms of the access to the property of a trail that would be for those that are a little bit more physically able, all of which would be able to either access the parking at the top or what would be there at the entrance area.
So how would they access, they would have to access the trails through the main entrance though, correct? Because I don't see a trailhead leading out onto Shallowford.
We didn't show anything as it relates to that, but certainly we would look at that in terms of the entire context and making certain that we provide the proper access getting in and out of the property.
Well, the way I always figured, if it's not on paper written down, it doesn't happen. I mean, that's
Well,
what I've seen in the past.
A judge gets to decide, plus you've got the easement document and you've got 2 parties that are working together. So I think all of those things will bring it about.
answer. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you. I just have a question of clarification. The passive park happens only if the assisted living facility takes place?
Only if we can, we would need to raise some money to do it. And we have committed, if the sale of this property goes through, and we have committed, Urban Century Institute has committed 70% of our funds to building the park. So the park will happen most quickly if we can get this arrangement moving forward. We've been at it for some years now, and we haven't seen a way to make it happen without that arrangement.
So I'm a great respecter of Urban's. This is really clarification. So I'm a little confused. There's a piece of property. Does it matter what goes on the property? You still have trust and the other land around it that's still under advisement with the judge, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
But the decision is not about what goes on the easement. The decision is more about whether it's going to be considered commercial or residential.
Okay.
As I understand it.
Okay. So if it's considered one, you don't get the park. If it's considered the other, you do get the park.
In essence, yes.
Is that correct? So so Mike, I guess I'm asking you this. Is the assisted living considered commercial or residential?
Well, it's in an R4 zone, which is a residential zone, and every definition I've ever seen is it's considered a residential use.
Okay. You can't put anything else in R4?
You can put other things in R4. However, an R4 does allow for assisted living and those types of uses, and that's what we're restricting ourselves to. So we are restricting ourselves to solely a residential use.
Okay. So let me ask one more time. If the residential use, and here's where I'm confused, okay? If it's residential use for assisted living, you get your passive park. If it's residential use for townhomes, you don't get your passive park?
Our particular developer would pass because they're not in the townhouse business, they're in the assisted living business.
No, I'm just asking so I think I see the two as two separate things. All right. So if your thing were voted down tonight for some reason, and what was going in there were townhomes or something else, does that mean the passive park doesn't happen?
It would depend on the arrangement with the realtor or the developer who was selling the townhomes. We would ask for some compensation in order to build the park.
You would ask for compensation. Why would they pay you anything?
Because they want a nice park.
I've got you. Okay, I think I'm cleared up. Thank you.
Councilman Henderson.
Well, a couple of things. One, Mr. Attorney, what happens if a judge rules this is commercial? What happens to this project?
Well, the problem that you have here in connection with this case is these conditions that are requested for this piece of property is that it be used as an assisted living facility only. If the court determines that that is a commercial use of this property, then it couldn't be used for the purpose that the rezoning would be existing for.
So you'd have an R4 piece of property with no ability to put anything else on it?
Nothing other than an assisted living facility, which the court might determine would be commercial use, which would not be allowed, yes. Okay,
so right now it's R1.
Correct.
You can place homes on this piece of property?
Yes.
According to the judge, okay. Mr. Bridger, where's John at?
Yes.
I know you're not a judge. I don't think you are.
Thank you, no. Got enough trouble already.
In the strictest sense of the term, if you take money for a service, are you commercial in zoning terms?
I think when we think in terms of land use and intensity,
Are you gonna give me a political answer?
well, because it's, I think it's not cut and dry. I think it's residential in the sense that people reside there. That's where they dwell, right? It's certainly residential in that sense. It has aspects of a commercial use in the sense you got staff working there.
It is a business, correct?
It is a business, but you also have people living there. So I
Yeah.
think that's why I would say that's why we have judges, you know. They hear all the facts, hear from the technical experts, and they render a decision.
Do we know when the judge is supposed to rule on this?
I do not know.
May 14th, they say.
May 14th?
Yes, sir.
I think I'd certainly be for a deferral.
The landowner just requested for it to be.
Point of order, can we get a name here?
I'm sorry. I'm Sarah O'Rear. I'm the Director of Stewardship for the Land Trust for Tennessee. We, along with the landowner, we hold the conservation easement on this property, or a portion of the property being considered for rezoning. You know, upon advice of our attorney, I'm not authorized to say very much, except that it is, you know, it is before the Hamilton County Chancery Court. The hearing was scheduled for May 14th. The landowner has just requested that it be postponed till later in the summer, and we don't know what that date is yet.
Thank you. So we don't know. You done? All right, Councilman Ledford.
All right. Well, this is obviously a very complicated project I've been looking at very extensively, probably the most time I've ever spent on a case. But basically what it comes down to, no matter what we do tonight, the ruling will be in the judge's hands as to whether an R4 is commercial or an R4 is deemed commercial. Outside of that, we're really looking at one piece of land, not the conservation. So I did prepare a statement I'm going to go ahead and read in my opinion, because I did spend quite a bit of time on the site and looking at other areas and properties around the area, as I think is very important as a council representative. So if you'll bear with me. One of the biggest responsibilities in representing our districts is in the review of the overall impact that development has on our community, and consider that impact through diligent research from several points of view. In this particular case, I have spent quite a bit of time at this location reviewing the adjacent areas in relation to their current zoning status, realizing what the future can and ultimately will bring. Development decisions are crucial when using our best judgment. Our job as boots on the ground is to make as many particulars known in consideration in relation to our decisions, and to put forth an opinion based in sound judgment, with future impacts in mind for the entire community as a whole. I do appreciate the document that Attorney Anderson presented to us last week, as I found it to be very helpful in explaining the intent, the mission, and nature of this property being placed into a conservancy. I have read the document more than once and have a much better understanding in relation to the public benefit portion of this conservancy project. In short, a green project benefiting our community through education and preservation. But this project, like many others, needs a partnership to make it work. The land use plan we are operating under today in East Brainerd is almost 20 years old and continues to be problematic in our approach to development, and we are way behind the times. This area of the city and county will see over 32% of the overall growth in the next 10 years, yet we rely on a document that is outdated. I have asked the RPA to begin a new review for the eastern part of the city, in which they have already started in key areas in District 4, especially starting with the Gun Barrel Corridor Plan, and I want to thank the RPA for their work in helping to modernize and standardize zoning goals based on today's growth patterns. In regards to the challenge of this proposal not being compatible to surrounding uses, there is a church located right across the street that most would consider to be an institution, which is zoned R4. Development on slopes is also a major concern of this council. Councilman Mitchell and I have legislation review being done right now addressing that. It's very important to us. I do believe that the partnership of UCI and Clarity Point will mitigate the rainwater runoff, and we'll use best practices. Council members, if you see in your agenda packet tonight, there's a letter sent by the Urban Century Institute, penned by Sandra Kurtz, acknowledging the much-needed partnership with Clarity Point, and finally fulfilling the dream of constructing and preserving the biodiversity garden on this site, a partnership welcomed by the property owner, Chris Moore, and the Urban Century Institute. It is important to note that we are discussing only the parcel which allows for development tonight and calls for 30 homes to be built on a very small footprint. That is 30 individual homes in a very small space. Pictures are included in your packet if you look at those, and it will show the site plan. I understand there is a judgment review currently taking place, but this has no relevance here tonight as it does not involve the property we are discussing. It will, however, have an impact on the future progress of this project concerning the crossing over of the Conservancy for access. I fully respect the outcome and decision that will be made by the judge. Our action tonight is simply to review the zone request for the parcel that is allowed for development. What I see every day as I drive by this particular piece of property is overgrowth, invasive species, and rainwater simply dumping into Mackey Branch. I would love to see mitigation efforts completed. The developer, through an underground mechanism as proposed in the efforts of the biodiversity gardens created by the UCI in this partnership, I believe will help mitigate the runoff we are experiencing. I look forward to a partnership that offers both a valuable service to our residents through the care of our seniors, especially those suffering from Alzheimer's, and through the love of the land that UCI will provide. In review of this case, I have also looked at the adjacent properties and the current zoning status. You will see images in your packet of Shallowford Road east of the roundabout at Jenkins. My research has shown the adjacent property is zoned RTZ, which has the potential in the near future to allow up to 160 homes, unconditioned. If we use the national average from the 2010 census of 2.58 persons per home, that will increase the traffic count on Shallowford Road by up to 412 to 480 vehicles daily. Keeping in mind, I support those current zoning rights as they are currently stated. I do believe, however, that 76 folks living in an assisted living and memory unit facility probably don't own a car, don't create calls for police service, don't stay up late at wild parties, you stole my line, and generally live a pretty quiet life. And with May being Older Americans Month, I find it very hard to go against an assisted living facility at this time. In closing, I support this request with the conditions applied at Planning Commission, and I'm appreciative for the partnership in developing the land responsibly and utilizing its full conservancy intent, knowing full and well this is in the hands of a judicial system. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Is that a motion?
That is a motion to approve with conditions.
Second.
Councilman Henderson.
Mr. Attorney,
Yes, sir.
with this being in the courts, even if we approve this tonight, can they move forward or start any work?
I guess it depends on whether there is some sort of injunction that it would be requested by either party in that case to stay any development until there's a final ruling. At this point in
Do we
time, I
know?
don't know about any of the pleadings that are filed in that case. If there is some sort of request for an injunction, a judge could stay any development until his final decision.
I don't see anybody jumping up with the answer.
We have no intent to begin until this gets settled through the courts. We have no intent to begin work until this is settled through the courts.
And we still don't know when that is, correct?
No, sir. Could be appeals.
All right, I see no more lights. I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. One no, Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Clerk, ready when you are.
Yes. An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 3439 Lightfoot Mill Road, more particularly described herein from R2 residential zone to M4 outdoor industrial use zone.
Councilman Gilbert? Did you have something before we?
Well, I'll have to go over it and see who's here, and I might want to defer this, but go ahead and.
Let me confirm. Okay. Is the applicant here? Yes. Is there any opposition present? Councilman?
Is it possible, I want to defer this for a week. I need to get some more information from the owner and from John.
All right. Is that a motion?
Yes.
All right, I have a motion to defer for 1 week. Yes. All right, I have a motion and a second to defer to the 15th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Yes, sir, deferred till next week. Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk, L, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 7416 Lee Highway and 2735 Silverdale Road, more particularly described herein from R3 residential zone to R4 special zone.
All right. Is the applicant present? Yes. Is there any opposition present? No?
Yep.
Madam Clerk.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay.
Abstain.
1 abstention, Madam Clerk. And when you're ready.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 5006 13th Avenue, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to a portion of C2 convenience commercial zone.
All right. Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? All right, seeing none.
I was going to add one note just before the record. If the intent is to rezone the entire property, just make sure we note that for the record.
That was the one clarification I wanted to get. So, is it stated that in?
Currently,
way it
the
was
caption,
submitted?
currently the caption reads, I think, to rezone a portion of the property, and correct me wrong, Phil, if
Says
long as he
portion.
notes the intent to rezone the entire property, I think that would suffice, but you tell me.
The PC recommendation is to rezone a portion of the property to C2 convenience commercial. Do we have a map? It looks like the rezoning shall be approved for a portion of the site, including the entire western frontage along 13th Avenue and extending 25 feet to the east for the entire width of the lot. So I'm trying to figure out where the portion is.
John,
It was
you
just
have
noted the first 25 feet, but the applicant requested the entire property to be rezoned.
Okay.
So there was a request to rezone the entire property. That was the original request.
So is the wording wrong, John?
Well, this is what came out of Planning Commission and staff. I think after our meeting, and the applicant looked into some of the setback requirements. They had some concerns with actually doing a small building and still complying with the setbacks. So it sounds like they're going to need to rezone the entire property to make it work. So my understanding would be as long as we note that we're, again, Phil knows more about what needs to be documented in the first reading ordinance than I do, but I know, I think the intent from Councilman Oglesby is to rezone the entire parcel.
And that is correct.
So the ordinance right now just says a portion of it, both in the caption and in the body. So it's only a portion, and it's actually saying it's including a map. So I do not have that map on the back of the ordinance here, at least in my version.
Can he admit, so do we need to defer this a week to?
We're going to get that straightened out, yes, sir.
Okay, hold on just a moment. Councilman Henderson.
John,
Yes, sir.
the applicant version is on our agenda as well. And his version was the whole piece of property, was it not?
Yes, that's my understanding.
If you'll turn the page, Councilman, the applicant version is on the second. Why can he not move for applicant version since it's on our agenda?
There you go.
Thank you.
Would that be sufficient, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. I guess you got to recognize that, I guess it was recommended for denial by planning and staff for the version that the applicant requested. And the version that the staff approved here was recommended for approval by both planning and staff.
And I'll just do it for, that was based on the assumption that they were able to build a small building within that small 25-foot frontage. I think was what they learned later on in the process, is that was not going to work.
So yes, the other version is on your agenda this evening. You could recommend the adoption of that one with that understanding that it was recommended for denial by both planning and staff.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear that that does state that it will be the entire property, right?
Yes, sir. It talks about the whole portion of the property at 5006 13th Avenue.
Okay, with that being said, that would be the version I would like to move for approval.
All right, I have a motion to approve the applicant version and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. And please, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located off of the 1800 and 1900 blocks of Old Wauhatchie Pike and owned by the Lookout Mountain Conservancy, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone, R2 residential zone, R3 residential zone, and R5 residential zone to permanent zone subject to certain conditions.
All right, it's the applicant present.
This case is RPA. This is the permanent zoning.
Just see if I can get you to raise your hand,
Yeah,
John.
you go have me there.
Is there any opposition here to this item? Okay, go ahead, John.
Again, this is just, we, of course, briefed your committee on this. This is the permanent zoning to follow the annexation in response to a petition from the applicants to be annexed into the city to accommodate a planned development. So staff has the list of specific, here's all the properties in question. And I think I got a table here. It shows you the permanent, that's all the permanent zones that is being established. So again, there was some questions at Planning Commission. We did a notification process for this like we do any rezoning where people within 300 feet were notified. The people that came to that were actually outside the annexed area. Once they came to PC and realized this was not actually affecting them, they were fine. So there was no opposition at Planning Commission. So it's as presented for approval.
Very good. Councilman Oglesby?
Mr. Chair, with that being the case, I move to approve.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. Oh, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 815 East Main Street, 1333 Central Avenue, and an unaddressed parcel of land in the 1300 block of Central Avenue, more particularly described herein from M1 Manufacturing Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, Councilman Byrd, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod.
Yes, I have. Did you receive any type of opposition, anything concerning this?
No, there were some questions, I think, from the Griffin store operator, the building right next to this had a question about parking, but that was the only major concerns. Again, it came, recommendation approval from staff and Planning Commission with subject to certain conditions. And those conditions are, give me a quick second here. Give me a minute.
Hey, John, while you're looking it up, I see the applicant. Is there any opposition here? Okay.
All right, just give me a second here. The zoning is approved subject to condition providing a type C buffer along the shared property line with tax parcel number 160I-E003. And the reason for that, if you look at, all right, come on now. If you see the little indent in the top there where the yellow zoning line, there's a single family residence on that property. It's a one-story building. And basically it would provide some screening since you got some taller 2 to 3 stories. I understand 2 to 3 story structures that'll be going next door. Provide some screening to that residence to the north of that property. So that's all.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. It's ordered. Thank you.
Say goodbye to our council, Planning Commission chair. See you.
Got to sleep through it this time.
P, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 1302 South Willow Street, more particularly described herein from R4 Special Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Byrd, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod.
There was opposition to this request. It mainly had to do with, we had some residents live nearby, just want to make sure that the operating hours and noise, would not have an impact on them. So that was the primary concerns. Again, looking at this request, there was a UGC, let me go to the zoning map so you can see, there was a UGC approved 2 blocks down to the south. I do think one important thing to note about this parcel, it does front on Willow Street. Sometimes you have properties that may orient to one of the local residential streets. This actually orients to Willow Street, which is a more kind of a through street, arterial. I'd say not arterial, I'll call it a collector. This property, again, they're trying to redevelop the existing house for a restaurant. Again, we retain the existing structure. Parking, as you see in the site plan, would be in the rear, coming off the alley. LDO staff did note that they're probably going to need to reconfigure some of the design for the parking to meet their, accessibility standards. So that'll just happen through the permitting process in terms of how they get their parking lot design approved. Staff recommended several conditions. We didn't have a concern with the use or the zone, but because of the adjacency of residences nearby, UGC does have some uses that are more intensive that aren't appropriate in a residential area. So you see that condition noting no wholesaling with accessory warehousing, no self-storage facilities, auto ordering uses, or drive-through restaurants. So those are excluded. We limit the hours of operation from 8 to 12, no dumpsters on the property, and no outdoor amplification. When it got to Planning Commission, after hearing from some of the community's concerns, they did modify the conditions. You see condition number 2, it got shortened to 10 p.m. instead of 12 a.m. And they actually considered allowing dumpsters on the property because typically with a restaurant you need to have a dumpster service, but limit the hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Hey, Councilman, hold on just a moment. Is the applicant present? All right. Is there any opposition present? Do you want to hear from the applicant in opposition, sir?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Ballard. We bought this property back in 2016 from an IRS auction sale with the idea, basically, it's a beautiful old house, and we wanted to renovate it. It was already zoned R4, and originally our plan was to put a quad unit in there and make it a multifamily situation. Because of its proximity to some of kind of the, I guess, not as well-developed area. When we purchased the building, we boarded it up and kind of tightened it up. And some people had broken into it and burned it pretty bad. And because of that, it slowed our progression. And it caused the work in order to do a quad a lot more intensive. So since then, we've had it boarded up. And actually, I have a lot of neighbors around that are interested in what we're trying to do. So they actually watch the property for us. They've kept all the kind of vandals away at this point, and seem to be pretty excited about what we're going to do. I actually am a commercial real estate agent, and I had some clients that I was looking for property for in the Highland Park, Ridgedale area to do a restaurant. And through that, we were driving by and he saw my property and he's like, hey, that would be, it met their concept. So this allowed us to figure out a way to actually develop this building and resurrect it. It's a beautiful building if you haven't driven by it. 3-story, already zoned R4, so we could do light commercial with it at this point, but it has to be 4 stories in order to do a non-drive-through restaurant. So that's why we're asking for the UGC zoning. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
All right. Don't have any questions yet. Let's hear from the opposition.
Hello, my name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 12th and Willow, right around the corner from where this facility is going to be. I'd like to note that the neighborhood, the property right across the street that faces another street, that's an elderly lady lives there. So she hasn't been really notified on what's been going on, but the neighborhood behind has, and they asked me to come here and say something because what their understanding is a special gathering permit is going to be tried to be pulled for this location. We don't want more traffic, It's gonna be right next to a restaurant that already exists, that's a block away, not even, you know, about 2 seconds. So, you know, we wanna, we wanna make sure that this development is actually not gonna do anything detrimental to our area, because a lot of people there are actually trying to, you know, build up their homes and invest in that area. So we don't want no more traffic coming through or anything like that. And then, like I said, there is a restaurant. It's a minority-owned restaurant that is a block away, or not even. It's like you could throw a stone next to it from this location. And so I want people to realize that if they do put another restaurant here, it could run that restaurant there out of business as well. So thank you.
Is there any other opposition? So no, Mr. Ballard, you have 2 minutes.
I'll just touch on a few of those points. I've been in the restaurant industry a long time, and I'm personally not opening the restaurant. I'm just the landlord. But additional restaurants that could come in the space, I don't think would run that restaurant out of business. Actually, it would bring more volume, I think, in a business for that particular business. And our goal, I'm not sure what gave anybody an idea that we're getting some kind of gathering permit. That is by no chance what we're trying to do. Originally in my application, I had specified event space, meaning, you know, if you wanted to have like a luncheon and they cater the luncheon, the upstairs we were gonna basically remodel and have extra tables. So if you wanted to have like, you know, 20 of your office workers, and that's the only reason that event space was ever even on the docket. But it was not ever going to be a music venue, a bar. It was not going to be like a late night. You know, it was. We wanted to invest in the community and the neighborhood and bring a nice anchor piece there. And Willis Street. I mean, if you've driven down Willis Street, it's a busy street, and there's significant amount of commercial there, and it's only a block off or 2 blocks off of Main Street there. So that's our intention, and you know we're trying to help the community and that neighborhood and continue to build it up. That's why we want to redevelop this house, which has been basically boarded up for probably about 12 years now. And so that our intention is to help the neighborhood, not deter from it or the residents near.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman?
Mr. Bridger, do you have I think I know where I'm looking, do you have a visual picture of the area?
You mean like an aerial photo?
Yes, sir.
I do have some on-street photos too, if you need on-street.
Yes, sir.
That's the site. That's the building in question. Again, you can see that's the alley going alongside the building. That's the rear view of the adjacent property. And you can see the rear of the site here. And there's, I guess, one of the homes next to the site, and that's another home adjacent to the site. You can see the...
Know exactly where it is.
Yep.
Kennedy Corn, okay. How, sir, job-wise, do you plan to hire people from the community, and how many jobs do you think they will have at this location for the restaurant? I know you're the landlord, but
yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to answer that at this moment. Actually, the proprietor of the restaurant actually lives off Kirby Avenue. He literally lives 2 blocks away. His proposed sous chef actually lives in the neighborhood as well. Additional jobs to that, I can't attest to that, but the person who's coming in actually with the restaurant lives in the neighborhood. So,
I know. Thank you, sir. I know this area very well in the street, and being that I haven't had any type of opposition outside of today, and hearing the uplifting, I do assume that you're finna bring to the community by redoing this house, because it has been and it's been abandoned for a long time. So being that, I move to approve.
All right, seeing no more lights, I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, Q.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 1715 Union Avenue, more particularly described herein, from R4 Special Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right. Is the applicant present?
I was gonna say, we got a request to defer this, if I'm not mistaken, for 60 days, is that?
Is that right? Okay, just want to make sure. Is there any opposition present tonight? All right, we'll likely be deferring, so Councilwoman, I'll let you decide if you want to hear the opposition or move for deferral.
Second.
Okay, do you have a date, ma'am? All right, I have a motion and a second to defer to July 10th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Defer till July 10th. Madam Clerk, that takes us to our first ever short-term vacation rental application hearing. The Henderson section of the agenda. Would you please read 7A?
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 17 STVR 00044 for property located at 26 Truett Street.
All right, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Seeing none. Councilman, would you like a?
Actually, we presented this in our Hill City Neighborhood Association meeting on Monday. And really the opposition that was presented, the letter stated that they just wanted to see more owner-occupied homes in Hill City rather than rentals, which that's really not a whole lot that we can do about. I move for approval for this short-term vacation rental.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, B, please.
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 18 STVR 00009 for property located at 3959 Kelly's Ferry Road.
All right, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Councilman?
Mr. Chairman, the letter that I received, the complaint, the reason he gave was that the neighborhood already had some trailer parks that attracted subpar residents, and I'm not sure what that means. I grew up living in a trailer, so I don't know if that makes me subpar or not. Other than the fact I need a shave, I don't know if I'm subpar. I move for approval.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Chip, I just wanted to say, don't even be offended about that, because you should hear some of the stuff they say about people who live in housing developments.
All right, I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, C, please.
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 17 STVR 00020 for property located at 1609 Long Street.
All right, is the application, or the applicant present? Yes. Is there any opposition present? Seeing none. Councilman Oglesby?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. So ordered. Madam Clerk, D, please.
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 18 STVR 00023 for property located at 4302 Tennessee Avenue.
Is the applicant present? Yes. Is there any opposition present? All right, Councilman, would you like to hear from both, please?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair.
The applicant would come up. You have 7 minutes.
I'm glad we get to actually hear from the first short-term rental. I was afraid that.
Yeah. You're the
nothing was
first
gonna be
one.
said.
Welcome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us. My name is Adam Lutz, and my friend Peter Upton, he and I own 4302 Tennessee Avenue. It's a beautiful little brick bungalow in St. Elmo. It's got a really enchanting backyard. And we bought it because it's a really wonderful place to spend time with friends and family. And as a short-term rental, we're able to share that with others. Major part of the appeal of short-term versus long-term rental is obviously sharing it with the community. But another factor that we really appreciate is we're able to take care of the property with much more intensity than we would otherwise. We're on the property probably a couple times a week, at least one of us is, or somebody who is working for us. And so with that in mind, we constantly are keeping an eye out for things that need to be fixed. There's never a roof leak that goes unchecked for a while. We've picked up quite a bit of trash from construction sites that have maybe blown into our yard that a tenant might not have noticed. And other than the maintenance, really the real joy of a short-term rental is sharing not just with people visiting from out of town, but we've had quite a few people from St. Elmo. They want to bring family into town. The nearest hotel might be across town, but they can have somebody a block away spend time with them. And that's a real joy. We keep a pretty tight watch on the bookings. We don't allow big parties. And there are a number of ways that I'm sure you all are aware of that we can vet. And along with that, it's also been a real joy to share Chattanooga with people who are not familiar with the area. We have a guest book full of people thanking us for showing us restaurants that they might want to go to. Like we've had people thank us for the recommendation to 1885, thank us for the recommendation to go to the aquarium. And it's really fun to be able to share the city that we live in with them. I gathered from the opposition that one of the big fears is that they don't want to see St. Elmo become overrun by developers doing short-term rental. And I can share that same concern. I don't think that Peter and I really fit the mold of big developers. Both Peter and I have lived in St. Elmo for different stints of years, and us and our wives at different times. And I really do feel like a part of the community. I wouldn't build or try and do this somewhere that I did not feel like I knew the community there. And with that in mind, I'm happy to hear opposition. I don't want our neighbors to resent our property or anything like that. So we're more than happy to offer our phone number and contact information. And if they ever have any problems, they can contact us directly. And then as a last note here, another joy of being able to run a short-term rental is with the turnovers and cleans. We need a lot of help with that. We've been able to hire people who need flexible work, a lot of young mothers who want extra work, want to get out of the house, but can't stick to a schedule of a full-time job. So that's been a really big joy as well. And I'm happy to hear what the opposition has to say.
All right, thank you, sir. Any opposition that wishes to address council, please come up. You'll have 9 minutes to do so.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns about this. And actually, I would just like to say, first of all, my name's Kathleen Nolte, and I live a block up the street on Seneca Avenue. And I actually really appreciate hearing from the owner. I didn't know that they were local, so I'm glad to hear that. I'd like to make a distinction, if I could, that I think that there's a difference between owner-occupied short-term vacation rentals versus somebody who owns them and rents out the whole entire house. I think it makes the feel different. I've never known who they are, and actually they have a beautiful home, and I've appreciated seeing it enlivened by people. So I agree with everything that they have said. My concern, as he alluded to, is that I'm worried that there is nobody at the city or the planning level that is actually keeping an eye on how many vacation rentals are being operated within a certain amount of land. So his is right next door to another, and that one, I don't know who the owner is either. So if we continue to have case-by-case decisions made without an overall strategic plan, I do worry that Chattanooga could fall down the path of New Orleans or other large cities where people have a hard time finding affordable housing to rent for a year or more, because it is more profitable for somebody to rent out a vacation home short-term basis where they are taking wonderful care of their property, but it's much more profitable that way. So again, my concern lies less with this particular vacation rental. I would like it to be noted that is right next door to another, and that in and of itself concerns me, as more and more houses are for sale in St. Elmo, North Chattanooga, and others. Obviously, by your response, this is not the first time you've heard of a short-term vacation rental. This is happening more and more in our city, and I hope that there would be some kind of overarching strategic plan so that we don't fall down the path of other cities that are facing these kinds of challenges. Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you, Ms. Moulton. Appreciate it. Mr. Lutz, you can respond if you'd like.
First of all, I would like to say thank you, and your name is, remind me? Thank you, Kathleen, for your concerns there. Again, I do share the concerns. You all are really the experts on how many vacation rentals is too many, and we're happy to comply with whatever you all need. However, there is a permitting process out there that we are trying to go through for you all to determine whether this is indeed too many short-term rentals. To one point, I don't believe that the majority of short-term rentals in St. Elmo are currently on a short-term permit or even under application. And to that end, I don't believe that the problem is a matter of permitting too many short-term rentals. I think that's a problem of people doing it anyways. And to that end, I don't know if I have an answer as to how many of these short-term rentals is too many. All I can say is that we're trying to go through the correct steps. We want to work with you all. We want to work with our neighbors. And we really have no intention of turning St. Elmo into Gatlinburg.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lutz. All right, Councilman, oh, hang on just a moment. Councilman Henderson.
Kathleen, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly what your last name is. I just want to thank you for actually coming down and voicing your concern, not just sending in a letter. Sometimes that's easy to do, just send in a letter, but I appreciate you actually coming down and stating your case. And it certainly is more meaningful. And it sounds like to me maybe you're not as opposed to this gentleman getting his short-term permit as you are just kind of us looking at and making sure that we're not overrun with, I guess, non-owner occupied rentals.
I would say that's correct. That is what I stated in my original letter, is that it has less to do with this particular home. And like I said, they do maintain it very well. It's better to see a home filled than empty. And there are other houses that are empty on our street, and that is really what the concern is. I don't know what the process is for the city or the planning agencies. I don't know if there's an overall strategic plan that you all are looking at when you're considering a case-by-case basis, and if you're looking at, I guess the example I can give, aside from other communities, is when I lived on Virginia Avenue in St. Elmo. Over the span of a year and a half, in a one-block territory, there were 4 homes that were flipped. So they got, they were vacant, they got renovated, which we're excited about. That looks better than they did before. But then all 4 of them, within the span of a block, became short-term vacation rentals. To his point, they may not have been permitted. I don't know. But that is concerning because it means there's potentially 4 people that can't find housing.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you. Councilman Byrd.
I guess this question would be to Phil, because I've heard this several times. Can this body regulate some type of, you can't have so many, short-term rentals in a certain area? Can we do that?
Well, this body actually will grant permits to individuals that operate short-term vacation rentals. The state of Tennessee General Assembly passed a bill on April the 24th that is regulating this bill, or the ability for short-term rentals statewide. The governor has that bill in front of him right now. I checked again today. He has not signed it as of today, but it is right before him. That bill does regulate this statewide. The city of Nashville attempted to regulate their ability to only have short-term rentals that were occupied by their owners. The state bill does not have that requirement in it. We can regulate what we can here in the power that the state allows us to do. We are specifically requiring a person that operates a short-term rental to actually come before somebody and get a permit. That is also designed to make sure that people who are actually having short-term rentals are actually paying the tax amounts that they're supposed to pay to the state and to the city whenever that occurs.
Okay.
But those are things that we do have some control over. We also, under the state bill, have some control over the aspect of noise issues and disturbance issues for adjoining property owners, because those are zoning powers that you have. This state bill, though, is one provision that takes away certain zoning powers that the city may have. So we have to deal with the regulations that are there.
Go ahead there. And like Mr. Henderson said, ma'am, thank you so much for coming down. And one thing, as a community, we do have to come together in some shape, form, or fashion and report those short-term vacation rentals that may not be in compliance, that you said that are on certain streets. And I think at this point, they can call 311, or that's it, right? To report a house that you may feel that's doing short-term vacation rentals and say, hey, I don't think these people are in compliance, or they're doing what they're supposed to do by law. And then you can bring them in front of us. Am I correct on that?
Not in front of.
Well, not in front of us.
Not in front of us, but.
Right, but in front of a body to make sure that they're in compliance and doing what they're supposed to do. Correct? Correct. Okay.
Good, sir.
Oh.
Councilman Oglesby?
Yeah, Kathleen, like everybody else, I appreciate you coming through, and I understand your concerns, because I live in St. Elmo. I stay on Tennessee Avenue with friends, and I've had an opportunity to get to know these people, and their intentions is pure, and they're in a unique situation where they live between you and I, so we'll both be keeping an eye on them. And those are something we as a council can really look at moving forward. But to your point, as Councilman Byrd said, you know, just let me know if you feel that there are any abuses in this particular area, our area. And, you know, I will follow up through it, share it with the council, and then we will do those things to assure that those abusers are taken care of. So I want you to leave here feeling comfortable that this is going to be a good situation. I've had a conversation with them. I have a good feel for them. If I didn't, I probably would have kicked them out at the beginning of the meetings. But I just want you to feel assured, and, you know, we both have each other's numbers. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this application.
All right. I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, E, please.
A resolution authorizing a special exceptions permit for a residential plan unit development for property located in the 600 block of Julian Road, giving temporary address of 805 Warlick Way for land disturbance permit.
All right. We are still in planning. Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition here? Councilman Ledford, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve, please.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. F, please, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the chief of the Chattanooga Police Department to execute a master service agreement and cop link license service agreement with Forensic Logic LLC, and also to execute a memorandum of understanding, Chattanooga Area Node Share of Cost Agreement relative to law enforcement data sharing software solution, licensing, maintenance, and data source integration maintenance in the amount of $35,899.
Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Henderson.
Move approval.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, G, please.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 1, CDM Smith, Inc., relative to contract number W12024-101, MBWWTP Solids Process Optimization Implementation Phase 3 Centrifuge and Digester Upgrades, a consent decree project for an increased amount of $334,500 for the revised contract amount of $1,708,050.
Councilman Henderson.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. H, please.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number Y17016-201 to JDH Company, Inc. of Chattanooga, Tennessee, replacement roofing system for Eastdale YFD Center Building in the amount of $139,225 with a contingency amount of $14,000 for an amount not to exceed $152,225.
All right, I've got Councilwoman Coonrod, followed by Councilman Byrd. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Aye, please.
A resolution authorizing Chattanooga Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, care of Shelda Reeves, to use temporarily the right-of-way along the northern side of the unit block of Riverside Drive between Chestnut Street and the Market Street Bridge for the purpose of installing historic TVA signs as shown on the maps attached hereto, and made a part hereof by reference subject to certain conditions.
All right, what's the pleasure? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. All right. That was the last item on our agenda, taking us to purchases. Ms. Woodard?
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have 8 purchases for your review and consideration tonight, the first 5 being on behalf of Public Works. First, we have a new blanket contract for flow meter instrumentation, maintenance, support, and purchase to be awarded to American Control Service LLC, an estimated annual amount of $250,000. Next, we have the purchase of 2 VFD and control cabinets to be awarded to Amtech Drives, Inc. in the amount of $62,854.94. Next, we have an increase of the authorized expenditure on the blanket contract for generator service and repairs to be awarded to Energy Systems Southeast LLC. The new estimated annual amount will be $150,000. Next, a new blanket contract for equipment maintenance and repair to be awarded to first Chattanooga Tractor and Equipment and second Power Equipment Company for a total estimated annual amount of $412,000. Next, a blanket contract for renewal for hand tools for local pickup to be awarded to Roll Aid Industrial Supply, Inc., in an estimated annual amount of $42,000. Next, on behalf of the fire department, we have the purchase of 60 fire hoses to be awarded to Municipal Emergency Service in the amount of $28,740. Next, we have the purchase of fire engine exhaust removal system to be awarded to Air Vacuum Corporation in the amount of $38,378. And finally, on behalf of the Youth and Family Development Department, we have a blanket contract renewal for cargo and passenger van rental to be awarded to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, an estimated annual amount of $26,000.
All right. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second to approve purchases. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you, Ms. Woodard.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to other business. Before we get to other business on the agenda, are there any council members that have other business they'd like to discuss? All right, seeing none, Mr. Noblet, would you like to start with A, please?
Yes, sir. We have under item A, 12 requests for renewals for wine and grocery store applications that have been requested. These are for 9 different Food City locations throughout the city in districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, actually. We also have 2 Aldi stores here in districts 3 and 5 on your list that are being requested. These simply require signatures of 5 members for the renewals. We're not aware of any problems with these places that have already had them for 2 years. They come before you every 2 years for renewal. And so I would request that y'all pass them around and sign off on those documents here before the close of business. We need to get 5 on each page.
If you'd start on that side,
Yes,
that'd be
sir.
great. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a city attorney report.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Noblet?
Excuse me. Should be 6.
Yeah,
The 5510 should be District 6.
yeah.
Okay. 5510 Lee, or Highway 153, Suite 1 should actually be District 6, and it's marked on our sheet as District 3.
I'll share.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, just discussion at this point in time. We have previously talked with each of you. There's been at least last week, a request for a settlement of a claim for a backup matter here that was presented. There's a resolution that Nicole should have, at least authorizing settlement of a claim by Michelle Jones, subject to the execution of a general release of all claims and dismissal with prejudice for sewage backup located at 4601 Shawhan Road in the amount of $33,554.54. And that request, we would just request that resolution be approved this evening.
Can I have a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, what's the pleasure of the council? All right, I have a motion and a second for approval of the settlement. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay.
And likewise, there was a judicial or a mediation, yet actually a agreed mediation earlier this week here regarding the settlement of a lawsuit concerning claims by Joshua Kilburn and as next kin of Stephanie Kilburn, Tiffany Kilburn, and Bailey Kilburn through their attorneys Patrick Beard Schulman and Jake Away, Roger York, Tiffany Line, and Brett A. York, subject to the execution of a general release of all claims in the amount of $150,000. That was a death case here in the city. And we would request that that settlement be approved. That settlement went through a mediation, and it's subject to, final settlement is subject to approval by the city council of that amount.
All right. What's the pleasure of the council? Well, don't jump at once. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay.
And lastly, I have a request from the Department of Community Development here to actually provide an ethics opinion here that has been required for, I guess, one of our employees by the HUD. One of our employees' husband is about to get a job. They were requesting whether there would be a conflict in connection with that for her HUD operations. Our office has provided that this employee will not be involved in any environmental reviews in connection with this incident here. And based upon that, she will not be involved in any selection, supervision of the vendors that might be involved in the department. And Mr. Hinton has given an opinion that this does not have any violation under state law. That is going to be required because this employee still works for the city and her husband's about to get another job. So that's why they were asking for that opinion to be brought to the council this evening and made a part of the council's records.
So the opinion is there's no conflict of
No
interest?
conflict, yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, that takes us to committee reports. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We begin the budget process next week, approving the 2019 budget. And it will be a rather long process, but it's always kicked off by the administration presenting the overview of the budget. None of us have seen the budget breakdowns yet. The public will see the same information we see online at the same time we see it. It is now going to be, rather than 1 o'clock, it's going to be at 3 o'clock, following Public Works and Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Nurse. Councilman Byrd.
No report, sir.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Today we had a report from the Office of Early Learning. She talked about the grant that we received for National League of Cities and shared the importance of carrying prenatal aid till age 3.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Gilbert. Councilman Henderson. Councilman Ledford. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will have a Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. It sounds like it will fall after agenda session and before the budget presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Oglesby.
You got a committee report. No report.
Just always giving you the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I do.
All right, that takes us to the point in our meeting where recognition of persons wishing to address the council on non-agenda items. Is there anybody here this evening that would like to address the council? Yes, sir. Just one moment. Mr. Attorney, would you read the rules, please?
Sure. Yes, sir. Please come up to the microphone this evening. You can only be recognized up there and address the council upon any legislative or quasi-judicial matters that they have authority over. Your remarks have to be limited to 5 minutes unless permission for additional time is granted. Don't use any vulgar or obscene language or attack others while you're up here on the floor. And you can't speak more than twice in a 30-day time period. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yes, my message to the.
Can you give us your name first, sir?
My name is Randall Lee Jones Sr., from Chattanooga, Tennessee, been here 48 years. And I'm talking about the East Chattanooga area and really the whole city of Chattanooga and state to Mr. Anthony Byrd, sorry about that. I addressed last week about some problems in the city. It's entertainers in town causing disturbance for me and others. They've done broke Central Intelligence, RF frequencies and cameras and other things around Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they involved me without my permission. I asked for an investigation and I come to see have anything been done this week.
Yes, sir. And do you have? We've been some folks that I turned over and tried to talk to you. Do you have a number or phone, or how can we get in touch with you outside of this setting?
Yes,
because
I gave the
Amy?
secretary my information last week.
Okay.
I tried to call. I brought back some attorneys, all the entertainment attorneys. I done all this myself.
Okay.
Sent in information, to the president and all of the federal agents and our police officers and everything. It's a lot of people here supposed to be investigating. Your department is not the only department I asked to investigate.
Yes, sir.
So we all in the same situation. It's not like one department know everything. It's different departments know about the situation, and a lot of people telling different stories. I'm willing to take a government lie detector test. I'm a Navy veteran. I really do not feel like playing with these people. This has been going on for 3.5 years. I'm really sick of it every day, 24 hours a day, and I really don't find out too much about them. And they starting to get a little spooky with the threats and stuff that they're making and how they got the city wired up.
Okay. If you give us a little time, a young man named Sam or Tyler will be reaching out to you. So you got to stay by the phone. So, or if they leave you a message for you to call them back, I'm gonna need you to call them back. Or Miss Amy up there, somebody will reach out to you and let you know how any investigations or anything that you have going on, they'll look into it, okay?
Okay, I have another statement today to turn in to you, and plus, I see that Mr. Kevin Adams and the NAACP was here earlier. I've been trying to contact the NAACP since this been going on. They would not open that door over there, but one time, that was way when Mr. Matt was living. I tried to contact him. And I'm gonna go and try to talk to Mr. Kevin Adams because he knows some of the people and me from when we was younger, and see where he helped me out with this information. Maybe he can come speak up for me too.
Yes, sir. When we adjourn, just give me that paperwork, and I'll turn it over to the proper people, and we'll make sure somebody get in touch with you to help you out with that, and maybe even try to connect you to those people, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Is there anybody else who would like to address the council this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. We're adjourned.